Yom HaShabbos, Mizmor Shir, Shir LeYom HaShabbos, Mizmor Shir, Shir LeYom HaShabbos, Mizmor Shir, Shir LeYom HaShabbos, the whole world is waiting.
Welcome! The 2.5 opinions.
Yeah, there we go.
For crying out loud.
I'm Frank.
I'm Misha.
I'm not the Rebbe.
Or so he says.
Yeah. Well. And up until a little while ago, we had Mark here, so that was the fourth stooge.
Oh. But welcome to 2.5 opinions. We're glad you were able to make it. If you are listening, we can't wait to have some more fun because today we are talking about Balaam. Ooh, Balaam.
Are we supposed to boo on that?
No.
No, that's Haman. Boo.
He's not that bad a person. For those who are following on Torah portion sections, this is Balak today. It is Numbers chapter 22, verse 2 through 25, verse 9. And it's funny how we say Balaam at the beginning because it was funny. It was like one of those moments of, welcome, this is the Torah portion of Balak, starring Balaam.
Exactly.
And then the next week's is Balaam starring who?
The end result of his disaster?
The end result of his advice. So, all right. So let's give an overview. Balak sends for Balaam. Balaam says no. Balak sends again for him. He sends no, but he sends, okay, I'll go. And he almost gets killed on the way. And then he gets there and they sacrifice. And he blesses Israel. And then he sacrifices again. They blesses Israel. They sacrifice again and he blesses Israel. But then he gives some advice to Balak. And then we get, Phineas. So that's a quick overview.
Or at least the opening pages for Phineas.
Yeah, well, true, very true. So, real quick, what's this all about?
What's this all about, Alfie?
No.
Jesse and I were looking at this earlier, and we saw some fascinating correlations between Balaam and Abraham. How do you get those connections? That's kind of weird. But we also saw a connection between, and this is more striking, a connection between Balak and Pharaoh. And then we have this reoccurring, Abraham, through you, your children will bless the nations. And we also have God telling Abraham, whoever blesses you, I will bless, and whoever curses you, I will curse. And that's kind of how we end Balaam's blessing for Israel is the same thing. But we start out with Balak saying, Balaam, I know that whoever you bless will be blessed, and whoever you curse will be cursed. So we've got a lot of inverses of things going on here, but there's definitely direct correlations. And then we have this talking animal. There's only one other time in all of Tanakh where an animal speaks, and that's at the garden. Is there a correlation there? Maybe. I don't know if we'll be able to get to it because we got so much going on. Where are we going to start, guys?
So you're saying to me that it's uncommon for a jackass to talk?
I think that's more common in Washington, D.C. than it is in our Torah.
Oh! There it is! I knew he'd take the bait. I knew it. So, okay. So, Jesse, you're going to read what?
I plan on reading the first Aliyah just because we have so much to cover.
From where?
It's chapter 2:22 through 22:12.
So it's Numbers chapter 22, verse 2.
Verse 2.
Okay. Kabod, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Reading Chabad's format. Just because
So-
it's fun.
So what I'm going to do is we have a new toy, and that's this whole setup here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share the text of the blessing.
But this whole setup wasn't cheap, and it's
No,
not
it wasn't.
free. Mark had
That's
to
true.
cough up some money, so please go up at the top of the screen over there, wherever you are. I can't even find it, and click on donate and at least donate so that Mark can continue bringing these shows and broadcasts, because Lamb Radio's got a lot of wonderful broadcasts. For 2.5 Opinions, we are not a ministry. We're not asking for your money. We don't even want your money. We don't even want you. Well, wait a minute. We do want you listening to the show, but we want your opinions. We want you to join with us. But please help out Lamb Radio in producing these shows and bringing them before you.
Exactly.
Ready?
Exactly. Oh, and before we start, there's also a window on YouTube for everybody to be able to contact us or submit a question or submit an opinion, and then we can read it out loud on the show or during the show, and hopefully we can answer questions. So don't forget that.
Our ability to address certain concerns, questions, topics, ideas will come a lot faster, a lot easier. Thank you, Mark.
Yes. And
So let's do the blessing and start reading.
okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bakar banu b'kol ha'amim v'yitan lanu et Torato. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah. El Melech Ne'eman.
Amen. Numbers chapter 22, verse 2 through 22, verse 12. The first aliyah read from Chabad.org. Balak, the son of Zippor, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. Moab became terrified of the people, for they were numerous, and Moab became disgusted because of the children of Israel. Moab said to the elders of Midian, "Now this assembly will eat up everything around us, as the ox eats up the greens of the field." Balak, the son of Zippor, was king of Moab at the time. He sent messengers to Balaam, the son of Beor, to Pethor, which is by the river of the land of his people, to call for him, saying, "A people has come out of Egypt, and behold, they have covered the eye of the land, and they are stationed opposite me. So now, please come and curse this people for me, for they are too powerful for me. Perhaps I will be able to wage war against them and drive them out of the land. For I know that whomever you bless is blessed, and whomever you curse is cursed." So the elders of Moab and the elders of Midian went with magic charms in their hands, and they came to Balaam and conveyed Balak's message to him. He said to them, "Lodge here for the night, and I will give you an answer when the Lord speaks to me." So the Moabite nobles stayed with Balaam. God came to Balaam and said, "Who are these men with you?" Balaam said to God, "Balak, the son of Zippor, the king of Moab, has sent them to me, saying, 'Behold, the people are coming out of Egypt. A nation has covered the eye of the earth. Come and curse them for me. Perhaps I will be able to fight against them and drive them out." God said to Balaam, "You shall not go with them. You shall not curse the people, because they are blessed."
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah imet b'kayei olam nota b'tukenu. Baruch atah Adonai notein haTorah. El Melech Ne'eman. So, what's all this mishugas? What is this? What do we know? What are we doing? Where are we going? Who wants to talk first?
Yeah, so our portion starts off, Balak the son of Zippor. Okay. But then in the fourth paragraph, the fourth verse, it says Balak the son of Zippor was the king of Moab. Okay. Why the repetition? Who or what is Zippor?
Because it was important, right? That's why we repeat something twice.
Well, I think the Torah is always good at doing some type of repetition to draw our attention, and it really does make us ask the questions. I mean, the way the Torah is set out and laid out, it is really designed to make you ask questions so you can dig deeper. And the more questions you ask, the deeper you dig. And I think the intent, this is my opinion, because, well, we have 2.5 on this show, the opinion is that the more you dig, the more you're going to learn, and it only drives more questions so that you can understand the mind of God. So
Okay.
Zippor, the Hebrew word zippo means bird. So Balak, the son of a bird.
Okay, but there's Zipporah, all right?
You're jumping ahead of me. So zippo just means bird. Zippor would be the proper name of an individual called bird.
Sort of like how we've got Totok for Danny. I mean, Totok for our dog. Why did I say Totok for Danny? Totok for our dog. Totok in the Hebrew, if you are talking about an inanimate object, means canon, but if you're talking about an individual, it's someone of good caliber.
Right, large caliber, big caliber, and so it's a good thing if it's a name for an individual. But if it's an inanimate object, it's just what the title of that inanimate object is. And so there's something drawing our attention here, especially when the name is mentioned twice. And Frank, I think you might have hit on it. Is there a connection between Zippor and Zipporah? Zipporah would be the feminine name. Zippor would be the masculine name. Is there a connection with Zippor and Zipporah?
Well, Zipporah, I was always told, means a beautiful bird or a songbird or something nice, where Zipporah means the guy had chicken legs.
Yeah, probably. He's more like you and I.
You got to be careful on that one because there's a different word for chicken.
Well,
someplace in the book, there's something about a chicken.
Yeah,
there's something about an oof. An oof.
An oof. So no, but there might be a connection, and maybe that's what the Torah is getting us to, that connection. What else is there to a connection with Zippor and Zipporah? Do you remember who Zipporah is? Who is Zipporah?
Zipporah is the wife of Moses.
Moshe's wife.
Also a wife or woman of Midian.
There we go.
Daughter.
So Zipporah is Yithro's daughter, and Yithro is the high priest of Midian. And where are we in verse 4? Moab said to the elders of Midian. Why is Balak going down to Midian to talk to the elders of Midian? Do we understand even the geography or the backstory? What has already happened here? Israel has come up from the south. They went into Edom. Who is Edom? The descendants of Esau. The descendants of Esau, their cousin, said, we don't want have anything to do with this for good or bad. Israel, you just move on through. We're not going to sell anything to you. We're not going to buy anything from you. You guys just stay on the road and keep on trucking, baby. We're not getting involved. They've made this clear. Israel keeps on trucking. They move on up, and they swing around Moab and go up into and conquer Sichon. Who is Sichon?
He's a king, right?
Yeah, the Amorites. King of the Amorites. Who are the Amorites? They're descendant of Lot. One of Lot's children from his ancestral cohabitation with his daughters. And who is north of them? Og, because that's next on the list.
King of Bashan, right?
Bashan. And that also happens to be the other son of Lot, descendant from his daughters. We got a lot of family problems going on here. You think you got a dysfunctional family? This is what happens when dysfunctional families continue to grow and become kingdoms.
Okay,
there's a lot of things going on here. But the striking thing is Sichon, while we're wandering around in the wilderness for 40 years, had already attacked Zippor, Moab. and pushed Moab south of the river and established new boundaries, therefore giving the Moabites a smaller area, and has already shown that they're more the weaker of this whole eastern sect that guards the way of going into Israel. Now I'm just talking about geography and the different kingdoms here. And for Moab to reach Midian, they've got to go around Esau or Edom further south to Midian. This is an interesting connection. We've got several tribes or clans that are guarding the way to go into Israel, and the first thing we're going to do is start taking out those problems. Sounds like a military genius here. Let's make sure we knock out these problems. And one of the things that in our Torah portion that clues on this is twice Balak calls Moab, that area, as being the eye to the land. In other words, Midian is pretty much the guard. It's the outlook. We would call it an outpost.
Moab is the eye to the land.
Isn't that what he calls it?
You said Midian temporarily.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean Midian. I meant Moab is the eye to the land in verse 5. So anything that's going to come in and hinder or affect the land, what is modern day Israel, is going to be seen and observed by Moab first. They're the outlook. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Putting out their guard posts. They're out on guard. They're seeing anything that comes in. And he's already saying they're covering up the guard. It's not just Moab. It's all of those kingdoms along the eastern border of the Jordan River. Those are the eyes of anything that's going to come into and affect the land. So even Balak here is recognizing something special about the land and the purpose of these kingdoms being on this side of the river. What it is, how it is, it's just going to beg more questions. We're going to dig into that. But we see a couple things here. And let me see if I can do the fancy screen sharing like you guys do and bring this up.
Now, wait a second. We've all been through the class that Marcus taught. So we're all co-equal mess ups. So.
No kidding. So if we can see this, I'm going to just try to walk us through here a little bit. We have Balak, the son of Zachor, saw all that Israel had done to the Amorites. That was Sichon. Sichon has already beat up on Balak and his father, and Sichon or the Amorites are stronger and better than the Moabites. And if Israel can walk through them like dust, what's going to happen to us? He's scared. Moab, verse 3. Moab became terrified of the people, for they were numerous, Rav. And Moab became disgusted. Disgusted? What do you mean disgusted? Disgusted because of the children of Israel. Now, this really is an interesting thing that's going on here, because where else have we seen these words? Moab becomes terrified, Vayagor, of the people, for they were more numerous, Ki Rav. You see over there on the right-hand side of our screen, the Rav. We have the Kof, Yud, and then the Resh, Vav, or Vet, I'm sorry, Ki Rav. So I'm all over the place in my screen sharing. I need 2 screens, guys. Moab becomes terrified via Gor of the people, for they were numerous, Ki Ravhu, and Moab became disgusted. Vayakutz. Have we heard these words before? Have we heard this description of Israel before? Go back to Genesis chapter 1, verses 8 and 9. And maybe I can share my screen. Can I do that?
Just click the next tab. You have the tab over there.
There we go.
Yeah.
Can you see that? All right. So verse 8. A new king arose over Egypt who did not know about Joseph. And he said to his people, behold, the people of Israel are Rav. You see over here on the right-hand side, same word. And stronger than we are. Get ready. Let us deal shrewdly with them. Let's they increase, and war befalls us, and they choose to go against us. And so they enslave them and make them put taskmasters on them. Let's scroll down to verse 12. But as much as they would inflict them or afflict them, so did they multiply, and so did they gain strength. And they were disgusted because of the children of Israel. And there it is again. Vechutzu. Vechutz. Vechutz. Why is the Torah being so specific with certain words and certain description of two individuals on how they describe and how they want to treat Israel? One wants to enslave them and diminish their numbers. The other wants to destroy them and wipe them out. Both of them are concerned with their own territory. Both of them seem to hate Israel without any purpose or reason.
Well, there is a teaching by the old dead guys, as you would say, that Midian, or specifically Jethro, was an advisor to Pharaoh, along with Balak's father or Balak himself, I'm not sure which. And they, advised, deal shrewdly with them. So this is coming back around to haunt them.
Okay. Jesse? Not sure where to go with that?
No. I had something and then it was there and then it was gone.
So just say what you got.
I already said it was gone. That was the thing.
Okay. All right. So back on our Torah portion. All I'm saying is there's seems to be in the verb in the verbiage here, and specifically in the Hebrew, that the Torah is trying to remind us of something else. That there's something of a correlation between Pharaoh and Balak. What is that correlation? Pharaoh thinks he's God and thinks he has power, legitimacy, authority. And what happens? Moses immediately comes in after the experience of the burning bush and said, Pharaoh, let me introduce you to God. God, you're on the stage. God says, Pharaoh, I am God. Pharaoh says, I don't know who you are. Not only that, I'm going to enslave these people. God said, they're my firstborn. They're my servants. They're going to come out and serve me. Pharaoh said, no, they're my servants. And so ensues the fight between God and Pharaoh. And we know who wins. But throughout all of this, God is saying, I'm going to place these 10 plagues so that Pharaoh, you will know who I am. And the whole earth will know who I am. Now, I brought up the geography point at the very beginning, and there's a reason for it. And that is, Balak's not stupid. There's kingdoms all around here. Everybody knows what's going on. Balak says in the opening verses here that let me get to it, and so I'm making sure I'm reading the exact thing. Balak's terrified of the people, but he says they're eating up the grass. Down in verse 5, he says, a people has come out of Egypt, and behold, they have covered the eye of the land, and they are stationed opposite me to oppose me. He already knows where they've come from. He knows the story behind it. You remember when we send in the spies in Joshua, and Joshua sends in the spies to Jericho? The people in Jericho have already heard of the fame. They've already heard you've come out of Egypt. They've already seen and heard that God is with you. This is almost like Facebook. Everybody knows what's going on around here.
Well, that is what the trade route was at that time frame.
Ah, yes, we've got trade routes.
This is essentially the Silk Road. Well,
yeah.
Well,
it's the Middle East version.
Middle Eastern of the Spice Road, if you might put it, is if you're going to Egypt. You remember when we came out, God said, "I'm not going to send you the short, easy way, lest your hearts become consumed by fear, and you want to return to Egypt. So we're going to take you around a Yeah, that route, the circular route. So we're going to go down south and come up through the Sinai Peninsula, and we're going to skirt along the edge of the Red Sea, close to Midian, instead of taking the path straight along the Mediterranean. So we already know there's two routes going through Israel towards Egypt. One is along the Mediterranean up here on the northwest, and one is along the Red Sea into Midian on the eastern side. So there's traders constantly going both of these ways. Somebody sees a huge cloud out in the desert. Somebody's going to see a huge pillar of smoke. Somebody's going to see a light at night. I dare say, and I propose to you, that there's been interactions with traders and various peoples, maybe wanting to come in and trade and that becoming fearful or being driven off or being shooed off or who knows what. My only point is that whole region has an idea. They've heard stories. What those specific stories are, don't know. They've heard something, because every time Israel conquers somebody, they've already heard about Israel coming, and they know where Israel's going. How do they know? Well, they posted on Facebook. Said, "Look, Achim, we're heading to Israel. There's some pictures of my vacation. Here's the pictures of the spies." You know.
Yeah. Here's a picture of my wife with the burqa. No.
Yeah. Word gets out is all I'm trying to say. Everybody knows. Everybody knows something.
But he's already said in the beginning, like the cattle lick up the grass. So,
but there's no grass in the wilderness.
Well, there was before Israel came through.
But what's what's the analogy here?
His conveyance is an analogy similar to that of chewing up every empire standing between them and their promised land, as if a cow would chew grass.
There you go.
It would be that constant, methodical, destructive nature.
They're unstoppable.
Right.
We are like grasshoppers to Israel. Huh?
Maybe.
Are we seeing this? Is that this is exactly what God has already told them?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you might think you're small and weak, but I've already set fear into these guys' eyes. Everybody's going to hear, everybody's going to know, and they're going to be fearful because I am with you. So you might think you're grasshoppers, but the people that you're going up against, they're viewing you as giants. They're not the giants. You're the giants because God is with them. And we see this playing out. But I brought up something about Balak and Pharaoh. And we see a similar contention going on here, but for different reasons. The spirit is the same, but the intent is different. The spirit is, I hate these people. I don't know why. I'm fearful of these people. And I'm going to make up reasons and excuses as to why I'm fearful and hate them. Kind of like what's going on today in Israel.
The strange part about this is, in a very weird roundabout way, the different individuals Israel has encountered almost feel like stages of grief in a sense. You have the denying wholeheartedly, you have the accepting but I don't care, you have the fearful and not wanting change. Out of all of the different empires that have gone up against Israel, even up till now.
So we saw that in Israel, and what you're saying is we're also starting to see this in the empires that Israel's coming up against? Is that what I heard?
That's what it sounds like.
Starting from Egypt all the way up to currently with Moab. It's that whole feeling of each empire has a different way, a different stage of grief that they react to Israel and the struggles they have against them.
Okay, but with Balak, we're definitely seeing Balak's country has already been reduced in size and activity and importance, and Israel just wiped out the kingdom that caused that to Balak. So Balak's scared to death, but Balak, unlike Pharaoh, Pharaoh is viewing this as a geopolitical, natural thing. I can stop this, and this is how we're going to do it. We're going to deal shrewdly with these people. We're going to kill the firstborn. We're going to enslave them. We're going to make things harder for them. We're going to stop them from breeding. Pro-abortionist. I think Pharaoh was probably the first one to really instill Planned Parenthood, or at least that idea of Planned Parenthood on Israel.
That's a little dark.
I'm just saying.
I mean, slaying the children.
Yeah, and catch them as they're being born and kill them off that way. We need to diminish the size of these people. Why? Because I have my kingdom to protect. This is my kingdom. They're in my kingdom. Balak they're not in my kingdom yet, but they're coming to my kingdom. They're already standing there in opposition to me. Pharaoh thought he could do this through natural or physical means. Balak says, I'm not big enough, I'm not strong enough, I can't do this through natural means, but perhaps I can do it through spiritual means. Because after all, I recognize that God is with them. It's Balak's understanding and approach to God is what we see as different than Pharaoh's understanding and approach to God. Balak thinks he can manipulate God. Balak thinks he can use God for his glory, for his kingdom, for his riches. And the one way he assures this, he goes out and hires the traveling preacher. Now, the traveling preacher just so happens to be a prophet.
Of the Most High.
Of the Most High, yeah. And what does this prophet say over and over? I can't do anything unless God says so. I can only speak what God speaks. Sounds like Balaam is actually a good guy. He's not a Jew. He's not a priest. But he definitely is a prophet. And he keeps on saying these strange things. Balak first says, Balaam, I know that whoever you curse will be cursed, and I know whoever you bless will be blessed. Balaam's response is basically, it ain't me doing it, dude. I can only do what God tells me to do. If God says bless these people, I bless these people. If God says curse these people, I curse these people. I just got an in with God. I know how to work God. Whoa. So, Balak, you give me a little bit more money. What do you mean I give you more money? Yeah, you know what? I can't do it unless I got a house of silver and gold. Oh, it's going to take a house of silver and gold. I'm going to pay you. I'm going to put a little bit more in the offering cup here for you, and then I'm going to get my healing. Then I'm going to get my blessing. Then I'm going to get what I want. Okay, so God is a slot machine after all. You got it.
So if you just give me a little seed money, I'll take care of it.
Yeah. That's all it is. It's just some seed faith money. Put it in here, and we'll make this work. What was that, Jesse? You mentioned it before the show. The ethics of the fathers.
A situation in Pirkei Avot, which it was verse. It was chapter 9. No, chapter 5, verse 19.
Okay. All right. Chapter 5, verse 19. Here it is in Pirkei Avot, Ethics of Our Fathers. Now, this isn't Torah, this isn't Talmud, this isn't things like that, but it is good writings. And years ago, I was really impressed because Mark took up the charge. He wanted to read this, or he had read it, and he thought, wow, there's some good stuff here. And in the congregation, he brought a bunch of people together and leading a study on really what is going on here in Pirkei Avot, Ethics of Our Fathers. In 5:19, it says, whoever possesses these three things, he is of the disciple of Abraham our father. And whoever possesses three other things, he is of the disciples of Balaam, Hara. Why would the ethics of our fathers, why would the sages compare Balaam to Abraham and Abraham to Balaam? So let's read on. A good eye, a humble spirit, and a moderate appetite of the disciples are the disciples of Abraham. So let's stop there for a minute. What is a good eye? Jesse, Frank, what's a good eye? What do they mean by a good eye?
I would
assume an eye that sees the best in things.
One that makes a good judgment based on what they see. One that judges justly, if you will.
Okay, I think those are some good ideas. But what I would pose to you is a good eye is someone that is very giving, someone that shows hospitality, someone that opens up their house, opens up their tents, cooks meals for others, sees the beggar on the street and is going to drop something in there without question. And this is the term or the phrase that is meant in Hebrew of having a good eye. A good eye is somebody that shows hospitality, and more specifically, whether you're in an Islamic country with Muslims or with Jews and devout Jews, showing the hospitality of Abraham is a common term with both of these religions, and that is, as long as you're in my house, I'm going to protect you, I'm going to feed you, I'm going to clothe you, I'm going to take care of you. Islam says for 3 days. After 3 days, you're cut off. But the whole point is showing the hospitality of Abraham, being hospitable, being generous, being open with your resources, because you're recognizing that what I have and everything I have only comes from God, and it's only temporary. So it's being giving, having a good eye. And then the next one is having a humble spirit, recognizing again, I'm not in control of this. God is in control of this. It's not what I'm doing. It's what God is doing. It's what I am doing with God. It's not me. It's not for me. I'm not increasing my lands and my borders. I'm not growing my business on my account. I didn't do this. God is blessing me. And then the third one is having a moderate appetite. That appetite covers several things. Not just food, not just drink. And yes, I do mean alcoholic drink, but
the ability to restrain oneself.
There you go. It's about restraint. It's about self-control. A moderate appetite, the heart of that is self-control. Do I have self-control over my time? Am I rising it early in the morning and praying and thanking God? Am I controlling the whole thing? Proverbs says, Proverbs says, a little rest, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands. And what Proverbs is talking about there is, your time on earth is short. Watch how you're spending it. It's okay occasionally to say, you know what, I just need a little bit of me time. But as soon as we start encroaching on that me time keeps on growing and growing and growing until whenever it finally comes to Shabbat, you know what? This is a day of rest. I'm just going to do what I want to do on Shabbat. I'm going to watch movies. I'm going to sit and eat, and I'm not going to do anything. It's me time. And now me time grows into Sunday and then into Monday. You know what? I'm too tired to go into work today. It's me time. The moderate appetite is self-control. It's not about you. Because if you have a humble spirit, you recognize this. But let's go on. That's the disciples of Abraham. But the disciples of Balaam, they have an evil eye. What is an evil eye? Jesse, Frank?
Is that thing where you squint at somebody and you perform a curse and something like that? Is that what that is?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
No, the evil eye would be just the opposite. Someone that's stingy. It's mine. It's all mine. I got mine over here. This is all mine. I'm not given to any.
You created this wealth.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The evil eye is, I'm not going to give. By gosh, you know what? I don't like what the preacher said on Sunday, so I'm not giving. I don't trust that guy on the corner that's asking for money. Is he just going to take it and drink or do drugs? I'm going to question that, because after all, I worked hard for this. He should be able to work hard for his money. If he wants money, he can get it, by gosh, get a job. It's that evil eye of, this is all mine. I'll do with it the way I want to. And then the haughty spirit is what is behind that. And that is, it is mine. I worked for this. I made this. I did this. It's all about me. And the third attribute here is limitless appetite. And really, in the Hebrew, it is the glutton.
Mm.
There's never enough for this person with a haughty spirit and an evil eye. There is never enough. Always wants more. That last pizza that's sitting out there that everybody's looking at and looking around at everybody else sitting at the table, this person goes ahead and reaches out and takes it. Well, nobody else wanted it. It's mine. I wanted it. It's all about me up in here. So this is what we're talking about is
So enough about me and how much I love me.
Yes, yes. And so where did the sages get the idea that Balaam carries these three attributes?
Well,
maybe it's in the way that Balaam is portrayed, considering the fact that there's more to the comparison and contrasting of Balaam and Abraham than just this. There's
where do we get this comparison and contrasting of Abraham?
You might have to bear with me for a minute because I don't have enough ways to do the hopping as you did. But the best explanation we have is the delving in of dealing with the elders of Moab and elders of Midian that came to see Balaam, and the subsequent preparation that Balaam took to journey to Moab. The example I can provide, let me see if I can find it real quick, is dealing with the whole starting point of this session. Here, let me pull it up, and I'm tripping over my words.
You mean him from Balak sending to Balaam saying, "Hey, come curse these people"?
Close, rather close. It's in delving with at the very bottom. God starts this whole thing out with, "You shall not go with them. You shall not curse the people because they are blessed. You will stay put."
Sounds pretty clear, right?
Yes, it's cut clear and dry.
Yeah.
The last time
everything is yours, but that tree is mine. Don't touch the tree. Don't eat the fruit of that tree. It's pretty clear. Don't go.
The interesting thing, and as we proceed onward, when Balaam wakes up in the morning, he says to Balak's nobles, "Return to your country, for the Lord has refused to let me go with you." And the interesting thing about it is the choice of wording, if I can follow the Hebrew well enough. In the choice of wording is the same for the word refused, is the same kind of choice of wording that was used for the situation with Jacob. I mean, not Jacob, with Joseph when he was the slave.
Yeah, you've got the word refused, and look over to the right, and you see the ma'in, or ma'an, ma'in. How do you pronounce that?
There it is, ma'in.
Ma'in. Now, does ma'in mean refused? I mean, we're reading from Chabad. You'd think that they'd translate.
Oh, Chabad would normally get this kind of
They're trying to get to the context here, but if we're focusing just on the word ma'in, it basically means to restrain. The Lord has restrained.
Oh,
it's not so much a refusal. He's real, and we're getting off the topic of comparing Abraham and Balak, but I'm glad you brought this up, Jesse, because Balaam just says, you know what, the Lord's kind of hesitant on this. He's not really with us. He's restraining me. God is restraining me. God is restrained. Because when you read that, and if you can either highlight, so it's ki, you see the word before there. Jesse, go ahead and highlight that.
Ki me'in.
Ki me'in yod he vav he. So the subject really is God. What is God doing? God is being restrained. And it's a weird nuance with Hebrew, because what Chabad has translated is in proper context, but the written form here gives us the impression that God is restraining himself. And again, this is some nuances within Hebrew. And so when you're translating it, and you translate Hebrew, you're trying to give the proper context of everything that's being said. And with everything that's being said, Balaam is basically saying, the Lord has restrained himself from letting me to go with you.
Well, didn't Rachel use the same word? The Lord has restrained me from bearing?
Yes. And it's interesting you bring that up. I don't want to go too far off topic here, but really what we're trying to focus on is Balaam is not saying God said no, you can't go. That's what God said.
Balaam's conveying it more as the aspect of
God's not convinced about this.
He's not convinced yet.
He's not on board with us. Where do we get this? Scroll on down. What do Balak's servants say to Balak?
Moab's nobles arose and came back to Balak and said, Balaam refuses to come with them, in the same light as it was used for Balaam talking about God.
So now Balaam doesn't want to do this. And look over there to the right. There it is, Ma'in again. Balaam is restraining himself from going with us. Now wait a minute, who's lying here? First of all, we've got Balaam says, God told Balaam, no, don't go. You can't curse them because these people are blessed. Balaam tells the servants, God's restraining himself. He's not on board with this. Dad doesn't like the party, but maybe we can convince him. The servants seem like they're able to see through Balaam's interpretation here. The servants say, it's not God, it's Balaam. And what is Balak's? All these B's, Balaam, Balak, 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 blah, 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 blah. What is Balak's interpretation of all of this from his servants? It's kind of like that. Do you ever play that game of you? I'm going to whisper something in your ear. You whisper it in the person's ear next to you, yeah, and go on all the way through. And when you finally get to the end of the line, that whatever that one sentence is, "Don't go," turns out to be he's got a girlfriend and he can't go out tonight. I mean, it's like, what? That has nothing to do with what I just said. It's kind of like that right here. It's like, what? What do you mean? Where did they get that God said no, God's restraining himself, to Balaam ain't fully on board yet, and Balak's interpretation of this is, well, let me send more important people with more gifts. We just didn't give enough money. We didn't send the right people. Let's send the right people with more money.
Oh, you mean if they send more dignitaries and hire in splendor or whatever, more important dignitaries, then maybe he'll change his mind.
Yeah, exactly. We've got a couple people showing up online. Jesse, go ahead and continue this thought, because I want to bring it back to the comparison of Balaam and Abraham. I want to show a contrast and comparison there with those two, because our Torah portion brings up some very striking things that are so similar. It's just uncanny as to what happens to Abraham and what happens to Balaam. So continue on with your thought there and come to a conclusion with that. I'm going to look.
The continuation of the compare and contrast, we would have to actually have a section pulled up for a story dealing with Abraham, a certain rather famous story known as the Akedah in Hebrew.
Okay.
And that is where my compare and contrast is going with on this one, because a lot of similarities throughout at least the journey of Balaam, and starting from where we've started, are very similar to the Binding of Isaac story, as it is known in Hebrew as the Akedah.
So take your tongue.
Say again?
So take your son. Which one? Your only son, but I have two. The one you love, but I love them both. Is that what you're talking about?
So
it's more in the that is exactly the section I'm talking about, but the way it's portrayed is more of a finite format in the way that with the way Abraham jumped in is very similar to the way Balaam jumped in here, at least at the beginning. Similar, not the same, but it is rather similar.
So you're in Numbers 22.
And I've just have Balaam pulled up at the moment, but
yeah. So go ahead and
there we go.
There you go. And I'm going to go ahead and bring up exactly what you're talking about here. We're looking at Balak, and what Balak says, God came. Well, better yet, let me come back up. So Balak's going to send even more money and more people, and Balaam says, hey, you know what? Balaam answered and said to Balak, even if Balak gives me a house full of silver and gold, I cannot do anything small or great that would transgress the word of the Lord my God. Now, that sounds great, and it sounds like it's an outright refusal. Do you remember the discussion that Abraham had over the burial of Sarah? Let me buy that cave. Oh, no, I'm going to give it to you. No, I want to buy it outright. And the answer is, what is 45? What's 45 pieces of silver between
what's
friends?
400? What's 400 shekels?
Yeah,
between you and I.
The whole point is he was naming his price.
Right.
This is truly a Middle Eastern thing that even happens today. What's 4,500 shekels of silver between friends? It's yours. Go ahead and take it. And Abraham recognized that. And said, okay, then the price is 4,500 shekels. Here you go. And the deal was set. This is the similar aspect here. Balaam says, you know what? Even if you gave me a house full of silver and gold, I can't do this. Oh, so he wants a house full of silver and gold. But how do we know this? Because the very next verse. Now you guys stay here overnight. I'll go back and talk to God again. And God comes to Balaam at night and said to him, if these men have come to call for you, then arise and go with them. But the word I speak, only that shall you do. And in the morning, Balaam arose, saddled his donkey, and went with the servants. And Chabad translates it here as Moabite dignitaries. The word actually is servants. But they're trying to go back into context. The people that are there are the Moabite dignitaries. But in the Hebrew, it's servants. So does this sound familiar? Do you remember when Abraham?
Talking about the Akita, I believe we had in the morning. Abraham saddled his donkey.
And where is this? Genesis chapter 22, verse 2. And he said, this is God speaking to Abraham, take your son, your only son, whom you love, yes, even Isaac, and go away to the land of Moriah, and bring him up there and offer him as a whole offering on one of the mountains which I will show you. And what happened? Abraham arose early in the morning, and he saddled his donkey, and he took the two young men with him and Isaac. He had two servants with him. Come back here to Balak, we see pretty much the same thing. Balaam arises and saddles his donkey. And so the sages see some of these correlations. What happens then? As Balaam's on his way, he meets an angel of the Lord. What happens to Abraham whenever he gets up on top of the mountain?
And is about to take his son's life.
Abraham's focus is on God and doing God's work. Abraham says the Lord will provide for himself. Balaam is concerned with, oh good, I can get money out of this deal. God's on board now. He's no longer restraining himself or me. Now we're going to get paid because that's his job.
But there's something else the sages brought into this. Abraham saddled his donkey, but he already had servants to do that. which means he was being humble and doing it himself. Balaam had 2 servants that he took with him, but he saddled his own ass. And that shows the dignitaries that he was not, he was being not foolish. What's another word?
He was eager to go.
Yeah, he was eager to go, but he was not showing the best part of himself as far as his
he was trying to diminish himself in their eyes, trying to portray a form of humility or humbleness.
Yeah. So that's just something that the sages were talking about. So
Okay, yeah. So we see that the correlation here is God tells Abraham to do something, and Abraham's intent is to be a part of God in this action. Balaam, on the other side, he's all about getting the money. He wants to get paid. And God says, okay, go ahead and go. And boom, just like Abraham rushing to do a good mitzvot, Balaam is rushing to serve himself.
Jerry Maguire.
Yeah.
Show me the money.
It's all about the money. Anyways. But we see this. And as they're on the journey, Abraham is looking on how to fulfill God's word. Balaam is looking on how to get paid. And on the way, they both encounter the angel of the Lord. And the angel of God tells Balaam, is trying to tell him to stop. The angel of God tells Abraham to stop. But Balaam's not cognizant of God's desires. Balaam's not cognizant because he's blocked by the animal within. So the sages come back. Again, we said that there's only 2 times in all of Tanakh, but specifically Torah, where an animal speaks. Only 2. The very beginning in the garden and here in our Torah portion. What's the correlation? I love how the sages think, because they're looking for how everything is tied back to the garden. Because that's our road. That's our inroad. That's our goal. What got us out so that it can be corrected to go back in? One is a snake, a serpent, most cunning of all creatures. Here is a donkey, the most stubborn, the animal that's used for servitude, the beast of burden. One immediately starts to speak with Eve, and then the other one starts speaking here with Balaam. But with Balaam, it's only after God allows the speech to come forth. Is there something going on with any of this? Can you guys see anything? Do you see any correlations with the snake and Eve and Adam and the donkey with Balaam?
If you're not careful, I would start assuming that the whole snake issue was if you're going to do a compare and contrast between the snake and the donkey, that's starting to sound more along the lines of God said, here, we're going to give you a test. Let's make sure you actually are listening.
Yeah, and so what the sages have compiled as an end result is animal speaking is really the animalistic side of man struggling with what to do and how to do right. And it's that animal within man that is constantly tripping us up. It's that animalistic nature of I want, I need. And we go back to Pirkei Avot, where we see that very thing. Abraham was more concerned about others and doing God's work than himself and his riches, and therefore God greatly blesses him. Balaam, on the other hand, is more concerned about his own welfare, his own prestige, his own riches. He could care less who owns the land. He could care less because he's going to roam freely in between anyways. He just wants to make sure everybody knows who he is. You came to me, Balak. Here's my wages, Balak. Because as soon as you're gone, I'm going on to the next person. I got people always coming to me. Look at my televangelist ministry that I got going on over here. I'm on 25 channels. I got a jet airplane and alligator boots.
I'll never be your beast of burden.
Okay. But Balaam is being reminded by his own donkey, you're still a servant of the Most High, and he's not catching that.
Mm-hmm.
What's the difference between the snake being more beguiling? The snake gives you two things which are good. In rationality, and if you look at the story closely, you're understanding the snake is offering godlike attributes, which is the purpose and the reason of you being here. All you have to do is break this or twist it just a little bit. Balaam is not even concerned with the godlike attributes. His mind isn't there. He doesn't see it. He doesn't recognize it. What's most striking about this, and this is fun, this is where the sages go into some great depth, and it's probably more than what we should even be going into on this show, so I'm going to try to make it short and quick, because I know it's probably going to, what I used to call in some of our studies was, this is the cosmic burrito. Everything's wrapped in upon itself like a burrito, and you got that juicy, flavorful thing in the inside. You know how many total... So yeah, fajita. Okay. So the sages look at this and they see there's something going on here. Only two animals speak. Let's see what the correlation is with those two animals. Like we're doing with Balaam and Abraham, what's the correlation? And they look at this so closely, they recognize that the total words spoken by the serpent in the garden, 26 words. And the total words spoken by the donkey, 23 words. 23 and 26 equals, do your public math, and you come up to 49. What is significant about 49? Well, let's see. 49, 7 is the square root of 49, so it's 2 sevens. There's something divine happening here, and we have Shavuot, which is counting 49 plus 1, and oh my goodness, we got a lot of things going on here. And even if you lay out the words in something like a square, you're laying out the words 7 by 7 by 7 by 7 to come up to 49, and you're looking at the words and you take the first letter of each word or the last letter. No matter how you deal with this in gematria or any way of trying to see what the correlations here, what fascinating thing is, if we calculate the sum of the words, we have a value of 19. And 19 is the value of Eve's name, Chava. Coincidence? Maybe.
Coincidence is not a crucial way.
Maybe I'm pushing something here. Maybe the sages are pushing something here, because they keep on going on, and they also see that all of the words is 49, and 49 also happens to be the value of Esther's name. Now, why is Esther so important? Oh, yeah. Esther, the book where God isn't in. And her uncle Mordecai. Maybe we can find a value here. Yes, because if we note that the value of the words in the corners of this square that we created by 7 by 7, 7, 7 of all these of all of this, the corners equal Mordecai. And it keeps growing and growing, that we see there's much more going here. There is a correlation between the snake and the donkey, and it still comes back to, and so their end result is what I said earlier, that animalistic nature that we're always fighting against. One, at our high spiritual peak, remember in the garden, we walk with God, we're one with God. And there, the animalistic nature creeps in our most passionate prayers, and our most closeness with God, with that most spiritual experience we can have. That animalistic nature creeps in and wants to twist it just a little bit. But when we're self-serving and focusing only on ourselves, that animalistic nature screams out and says, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be the servant. I'm supposed to be the donkey. Your animalistic nature is supposed to be what you ride upon, the skin, who we are, the color of our eyes, what I can do physically, what I can speak. This is the servant of the Spirit. And that's exactly what the donkey is saying. Balaam, why are you going against your own body? Don't you realize I'm here to carry you through the spiritual journey, and you're on what you think is a spiritual journey because you're a spiritual prophet of God, but truly all you're doing is making fat the donkey. Go ahead, Jesse. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. You're good. I'm just... The number generation kind of played a confusing attribute there. So for those who might be a little confused as to where you're connecting the dots and everything, any possible way to Lilo Dallas?
I don't know, because you're going to make me go back through everything, and I don't want to go back through everything. All I was trying to do is show how the sages delve into this. You're seeing correlations here that are too striking. They're in your face, and they want to know why.
In other words, coincidence is not a kosher word.
That's how they view Torah. It's not a coincidence that there's only two animals that speak. Why? What is Torah trying to teach us, and what is Torah trying to tell us? The end result of what they gathered from this is that dualistic nature of man. I am a godly spirit dwelling within an animal flesh, and the animal flesh was meant to be a servant. Who do you feed the most? The godly spirit or the animal flesh? That's the one that is going to be the most prominent in your life, and the most that you're going to be focusing on. That's going to be the physical, the larger of the two beings. And this is where we are with Balaam. Balaam is feeding the flesh, but he's doing so with the spirit, the divine spirit that lives within him.
Right.
You might view it as, in modern Christian vernacular, Balaam truly is filled with the Holy Spirit. You don't want to believe that? No, he doesn't believe in Jesus, and he's whatever. The point is, miracles are coming from this guy, and he believes in God. And he's attributing everything to God. His own words, I can't do anything unless God lets me. I can't speak anything unless God speaks it first.
Right.
But he's using that gift, that spirit, that divine spark, that Holy Spirit, whatever you want to call it, within him to feed his flesh. And his donkey is saying no. The angel of the Lord, who just a couple of verses earlier said, okay, Balaam, go ahead and go. Boom! He's on his donkey and he's chasing after it. We're getting rich tonight, boys. Meat's back on the menu.
That is so true. That is so true. Because even though it looks much calmer, even though it looks much more tame based on the way it's written, it is very much the attitude out of Balaam of, I have made my deal. God has finally said I can do my deal. We're going headstrong, in comparison to Abraham's approach of, I don't want to do this. Please don't make me do this. But even though you have made me do this, but even that's where I was going with it. Even though it was that attitude of, don't make me do this, he did not halt his steps as he moved forward. He still did what God said.
He rushed to do the spiritual thing. Therefore, Abraham saddled his own donkey and left. Balaam rushed to fulfill his animalistic nature. Thus, he saddled his donkey and he rushed off to do the spiritual work. Was only there to feed his animal soul. Abraham recognized, no, it's spiritual is the purpose of the animal. The animal carries the spirit. It's not about the animal. I'm probably not even making that clear, but hopefully everybody can understand that. Frank, you got a point you want to make?
Well, I'm just saying we're at the bottom half of the hour. Do we want to go and look at?
Oh, we can go and.
Or we just want to try and wrap up.
Remember, so long as we don't overcharge the time, like how we've always been able to go to about 7 or longer. So long as we don't try to overcharge it, we should be good. I mean,
let's find a point to come to. Yeah, let's find a point to come to, because we have dabbled all over, and the things that I was getting into and the things, Jesse, you brought up, it it does require a little bit more time to go through all the correlations. There's so many, and I challenge each one of you that will ever listen to this show or this broadcast, go back and see what other correlations you can find behind Balaam and Abraham, because there's so many more. But even more so, Balak and Pharaoh, because there's even more correlations there as well. It's not about the correlations, it's about the intent of the heart. What was Pharaoh's position? What's Balak's position? What's Abraham's position? What's Balaam's position? The end result of Abraham is exactly what Balaam prophesied and exactly what Balak told Balaam as to why I'm coming to you. Israel will be blessed and has been blessed. And then when we go back to what God spoke to Abraham after the Akedah, the binding of Isaac, what does God tell him?
That you would not withhold your only son from me. So I know that your heart is with me.
Because your focus. Yes, that's exactly what I was going to say as well. Because your spirit is directed towards me, you were willing to give up this.
Yeah, so we see right here, immediately after that experience, he's still on the mountaintop, and he said, who said this is the angel is speaking? And keep in mind, Amalek is a messenger. He's only speaking, he's like a conduit for God. So God is saying to Abraham, by myself have I sworn, says the Lord, that because you have done this thing and you did not withhold your son, your only son, that I will surely bless you and I will greatly multiply your seed as the stars in the heavens. Read our Torah portion. Balaam goes up on multiple mountaintops, and each time, how goodly are your tents, O Jacob. And he speaks about how great Jacob's going to spread out like the stars in the heaven. And your descendants will inherit the cities of their enemies. You're going to crush the enemies. And in our Torah portion, what does it say? Israel is going to win. Israel devours its enemies. Israel is like a lioness, a lion that rises up and devours anybody that comes against it. And like a lioness, she lays back down. And the last verse here, and through your children, this is God speaking to Abraham, through your children shall be blessed all the nations of the world. So what is the purpose of Israel?
Is to bless the world.
Israel is a conduit that God uses to bless the nations. So does it benefit or profit anybody to be a Jew?
I would think so, but
did we not read Romans?
Yeah.
I mean, Paul seems like he's pretty much an anti-Semitic through all of his letters. Paul really does sound like an anti-Semite. He sounds like he's against Jews and Judaism in all of his letters. I can point out all night long different things that makes it sound as though Paul is an anti-Semite. But in Romans, he comes back around and says, but what is beneficial to the Jew? They are much in every way because it was to the Jew that was given the law. It was to the Jew that was given the covenants, plural, and the oracles or prophets. That's a Greek way of saying prophets. We always want to read New Testament in Greek without understanding from a Hebraic mindset. But these things were given to the Jews. So this temporary thing that you're experiencing now, the Jews are being hated and persecuted, don't you get on that bandwagon, warns Paul in Romans. Don't you speak bad about the Jews. Why? Because whoever curses them, God says, I will curse. Right. Whoever blesses them, says God, I will bless. That goes back to the covenant with Abraham in the beginning of the splitting of the parts. Yep. Whoever blesses you, I will bless. Whoever curses you, I will curse. And here's the culmination of it. Through your children, the entire world will be blessed. And so what is it we have here? Let me get this screen sharing thing off.
So are you saying that this is like the other end of the book, bookend, the other bookend, because you got, Abraham, and then you got, Balak, Balaam. So are you saying that in between those, this is why the world's going to be blessed?
Yes, in a way. I mean, this isn't quite the bookend, but it's definitely showing a comparison, contrasting of the different approaches and the different intents in the heart of two different men, and both of them are prophets. Abraham truly is a prophet, and Balaam truly is a prophet.
Right.
Abraham is chasing God. Balaam is chasing himself. Yeah. He's just using God. God is a vending machine. I put my quarter in here, I pull that right handle, and out at the bottom I get my Snickers bar.
Yep. God's an ATM machine.
He is. Yeah. God is the ultimate ATM machine. As long as I give my seed faith money, then I'm going to get blessed and rich, because it's all about me up in here.
Right. So how do we wrap this up? How do we
wrap up for this one is going to be fun. But to try to sum up, I could probably say it would be something along the lines of through the attitudes of Balaam and Balak, even though we didn't see much about Balak in this story, it is very much the attitude of, I feel like I'm about to pull a that'll preach situation, but the heart is a fickle thing. The heart wants what the heart wants. And if the heart wants something physical, it'll darn right find a way to do it. So step lightly.
Yeah.
Because as we've seen with Balaam, had it not been for his own donkey saving his life, he would have been killed at least 2, if not 3 times by the angel itself. It has been very much that attitude of, he was blind to the spiritual because he was trying to use the spiritual to get the physical. And with Balak, it was very much the attitude of, I want the spiritual to serve my physical needs. I want the curse on Israel so that I can have the power to destroy Israel in the physical realm.
Right.
Because the spiritual is only that shield around your base. Once that shield is down, I can steamroll it.
All your base belong to me.
Yeah, and so when we get down to Numbers chapter 24, so if you're scrolling through this, or you're flipping through your pages in your King James Bible or whatever version you're reading, 24 verse 5, we find the final blessing, the third and final blessing that Balaam says. How goodly are your tents, O Jacob, and your dwelling places, O Israel. They extend like streams, like gardens by the river, like aloes which the Lord has planted, like cedars by the water. What he's basically saying is Israel continues to grow. And this is exactly what God promised. And then we scroll on down, verse 8. God who has brought them out of Egypt with strength in his loftiness, he shall consume nations which are his adversaries, bear their bones and dip his arrows in their blood. He crouches like a lion and like a lioness. Who dare arouse Israel? Wow. Those who bless you shall be blessed, and those who curse you shall be cursed. Here is where Balaam, through obeying, oddly enough, at least the guy has some aspect of, I can only speak what God puts in my mouth. Balaam is telling Balak, you said, who I bless will be blessed, and who I curse will be cursed. God says those who bless Israel will be blessed, but those who curse Israel shall be cursed. And Balak basically fumes in anger and says, you get out of here. You go back to your place. I'm going back to my place. I said I would honor you greatly, but the Lord has deprived you. God did this. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. He goes,
even though we're in our most animalistic way, we're still going to blame God, and we're right. Balak was right. Balaam was right. I mean, they're both right. And so they leave. Boom. See ya. Okay, bye.
Yeah, but Balaam gives some advice to Balak first before he leaves.
Ah. So in the next 10
He
minutes.
also tells Balak, hey, guess what? This is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
So
Okay, I can't curse them. You can't curse them. You can't defeat them. You can't fight them, and you can't curse them. But you know what? There's another way to get this done. Make them do it themselves.
Mhm.
Oh, Balaam, what are you talking about? How do I get them to do it themselves?
Now,
It's easy. Lust of the eye, lust of the flesh, pride of life.
now, if he'd have just shut up right there, he'd have gone to his own place and continued to be a prophet of God. But because he opened his big fat mouth and gave counsel to Balak, he gets killed with the edge of the sword, which is what we hear about in not next week's portion, or maybe it is, or is it the week after?
It is next week's portion.
Yes, next week's portion. We get told this is what happens. You opened your fat mouth, you caused this, this is what's happening to you. So, but this is where Phineas comes in. And we all know the story. Phineas, sees Zimri and Cosby, and he goes after him with a javelin or a spear and spits him right through. And next week we'll hear that God said, because he had a different spirit, or a spirit for me, I will give him a new covenant.
Yeah, so what you're talking about is in Numbers chapter 25. Israel settles in Shittim, and they begin to commit harlotry with the daughters of Moab. And that's kind of like the first verse, chapter 25, is kind of like a wrap up of everything else that's going to follow here. And we get more into the story. So Moab really realizes, Balak realizes, I can't beat them physically and I can't beat them spiritually. But
emotionally,
let's study their laws and see how we can get them to trip up on their laws. I see here that you're forbidden to intermarry. Let's entice that intermarriage. I see here that you're forbidden to do these certain things. I'm not going to ask you to outright bow down and offer sacrifices, but nonetheless, it's a good luck charm. It's harmful. It's just a little tree over in the corner we're going to put presents under. It's just
donate this to the cause.
Yeah, it's just a little thing here, a little thing there, and we chip away at the morals until finally we have out and right blazing. Moshe and Aaron, I'm going to do what I want to do, and here is a princess of Moab, and I'm going to fornicate with her right here in front of the sanctuary.
Yep.
And that causes the curse from God, not from Balaam, not from Balak, not from Pharaoh. This isn't Hitler doing this. This isn't all the bad guys in the world that we've ever faced. This is us doing it to ourselves.
Yeah.
Because the nations came by and said, hey, we can be friends. Why can't we be friends? Why can't we be friends?
But what happens is that
we intermingle.
Yeah.
We associate. Nothing bad with this. It's not. There's really not. But you're called to be a light unto the nations, not have your light diminished by the nations.
Right. And with all of this stuff going on, a prince of Israel and a princess of Midian, they go to fornicate, as you said, in front of the Mishkan. And Phineas. Now, one of the things is Phineas's name is written with a small letter, and meaning he was of diminutive size, meaning he was short. But yet he had the heart to go after God and what God wanted, and he stopped the plague. According to what it says, he spit them both through, and he stopped the plague. So this is after.
But wait a minute, Frank. We've only got 5 minutes here, but hold on. God has already established a court.
Yes.
And a way to judge especially judge those of Israel. This is how a man of Israel will be judged. You're going to first go in and tell him he's doing it wrong, explain to him why he's doing it wrong. If he still refuses, then you bring him to the elders. Phinehas didn't do any of this. He went in and killed him immediately. That's murder. Even in Torah, that's murder.
Well, but
how does Phinehas get away with this murder?
According to what the sages say, he was stirred because of God. Because just before this, they had already gone out and executed the elders the people who were involved in it. And it was the elders who had gone out and done it. Well, they're all sitting there going, oh, what are we doing? What are we doing? And then Zimri and Cosby come up. Moses is said that he felt weak. Aaron felt weak. So off goes Phinehas and takes care of the deal.
Yeah, so
he was a zealot for God, not for himself.
So we see that Israel is joining in with those that are worshiping the Baal of Peor. Baal really means husband.
Yeah.
The Hebrew word is husband. The Aramaic word is husband. The husband of Peor, which is a false god, and they're joining in with this. And part of this is something akin to an orgy. It's all sexual related to bring about offspring, and it's a fertility rite type thing. But as we go on, the Lord said to Moses, take all the leaders of the people. This is verse 4, 24 verse 4. Take all the leaders of the people and hang them before the Lord facing the sun, and then the flaring anger of the Lord will be removed from Israel. Because this is a huge atrocity. They're turning their back on God, and in the camp of God, in the face of God, they're bringing in idolatry and sexual promiscuity that is a disgusting thing in all ways. Moses said to the judges of Israel, each of you shall kill the men who became attached to Baal Peor. Then, after this proclamation, even though you're warning me, Moses, you are in front of the Sanhedrin, in front of the Supreme Court, and the justice, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. Yeah, blow it up out your ear, Moshe. I'm going to do what I want to do in verse 6. Then an Israelite man came and brought a Midianite woman to his brethren. He brought her in here, and like you said, Jesse, it is properly in Hebrew, an Israelite prince brought a Midianite princess to his brethren, and before the eyes of Moshe, before the Supreme Court, he says, I'm going in and consummating this idolatrous act.
Yeah.
And he goes in front of everyone while Moshe and Aaron are weeping because the people are committing such an atrocity, and they're sitting at the tent of meeting, horrified, stunned, unable to even act. All they're doing is crying out, God, forgive them. People, please don't do this. You don't understand what you're doing. Why is this happening? And Phinehas, in that moment, jumps up, grabs a spear. Had he have killed them before they went in and did this act, it would have been murder.
Yes.
Had he waited till after the act, it would have been murder.
Right.
The only time he could have done this, according to Torah, the legal guidelines on how and when capital punishment can be doled out, the only time Phinehas could have done this is in the act itself.
Right. Right.
A moment before, murder, Phinehas, you're dead. A moment after, murder, Phinehas, you're cast out into a city of refuge.
Right.
Only the proper time. But the real lining, Frank, is what you're getting to here. What was the intent of Phinehas?
His heart was for God, and his heart said, "This is wrong. It's against God's words. This is wrong. I have to take care of this."
That seems to be a big theme throughout this Torah portion, or at least what we found this go round. Very much about the intent of the heart.
Yeah. So it's getting close to the top of the hour. how do we wrap up this Torah taco?
I think you just did.
Okay.
I think we
Really,
both
I
did,
think
yeah.
we just did. It throughout all of this, we see the comparison, the contrasting, we see the
Right.
differences, we see the similarities, and it all comes back to the intent of the heart and what is your motivation
Right.
for doing. What's your motivation for doing Torah?
Right. Exactly.
Because.
Okay.
And here's a catch to it, and this is a kind of a challenge, and that is your motivation to do Torah so that you can be a Jew? Why do you want to be a Jew? You're not called to be. There's nothing in all of Tanakh, there's nothing in the New Testament, any place else that says you have to convert to Judaism, so why do you want to do this? Oh, well, I want to serve God. Okay. And while you're serving God, and you're starting to delve into different things, and you're starting to listen to different teachings, and you're starting to dabble in and sprinkle a little bit of this on it, and sprinkle a little bit, and you know what? That whole cheeseburger thing, I think Abraham gave God a cheeseburger, and therefore cheeseburgers are good. Those crazy Jews, I don't know what they're talking about. Besides, I can rush back to my New Testament and find traditions of men as a bad thing. Bad. Traditions of men is bad.
Right.
But
now,
everything we do is a tradition. Everything.
right,
It's tevia. Tradition.
The tradition of man, not the tradition of God.
But all of it's man. Man wrote the Torah.
Well,
Moshe was a man.
It was dictated to, and
Oddly enough, we have that one crazy scripture, and I'm going to end with this, and I'm done for the evening. It's in this Torah portion. Since we're speaking about God and man, God says, I am not a man. I am not the son of man. Now, I know most people want to jump back and say, yeah, but he said, I'm not like a man that I would lie. And I'm not like the son of man that I would change my mind. But you challenge you that you don't know Hebrew. Because the subject is, I am not a man. Therefore, I cannot lie. I am not the son or the descendant of man. I wasn't born of man or woman that I could change my mind. Had I been born of man or woman, I would have the ability to change my mind. Had I been a man, I'd have the ability to lie. God is saying, I am not a man, and I am not the son of man. Therefore, this is the way we do things.
Right.
That's in this Torah portion, and that's a tough one for a lot of us. Anyways, that's my say-so for tonight. That's my opinion. You've got your own, and you're fully entitled to your own opinions. We can agree, we can disagree. The whole point is, are we chasing God's opinion? Because that's the only opinion that matters.
That's correct. So I think that's probably the best way to wrap it up. So I'm Frank.
I'm Yishai.
I'm not the Rebbe.
Or so he says.
Yeah, so he says. So this is 2.5 Opinions. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next week. Shavua Tov.
Shavua Tov, Laila Tov, Velahitrot.
Mizmor shir, shir leyom hashabos. 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 The whole world is waiting.